In Deuteronomy chapter 20, verses 3 and 4, God says, "Today you are drawing near for battle against your enemies. Let not your heart faint. Do not fear or panic or be in dread of them. For the Lord your God is he who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies to give you the victory." In this battle against lust, porn, and masturbation, have you ever felt like tiny little David up against great, big, mighty Goliath? Do you remember how that story ended? Consider this. Is God any different today than he was back then? The God who was with David in that epic battle is the same God who is with you right now in yours. The same power that he gave to David to defeat that giant named Goliath in his life, he makes available to you to combat your giant named lust, porn, and masturbation. God has promised to give you everything you need to fight this battle and win. Victory isn't something you have to manufacture. I mean, hey, we've tried that before, right, in the past, and we failed miserably. That's why we end up feeling so discouraged, so defeated. When you and I try to beat this beast in our own strength, we will lose every time, guaranteed. You see, the scriptures don't say, "You are from great stock, for greater are you than he that is in the world." No, it says you are from God and have overcome, for he who is in you is greater than he who's in the world. We read in 2 Samuel chapter 22 that David spoke to the Lord the words of this song on the day when the Lord delivered him from the hand of all of his enemies and from the hand of Saul. And here's what he said: "The Lord is my rock and my fortress, my deliverer, my God, in whom I take refuge. He's my shield. He's the horn of my salvation, my stronghold and my refuge and my Savior. I call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies." Later on in that same chapter, David said that God is the one who equipped him with the strength that he needed to fight the battle and win. Listen to what God said to Joshua. Here's what he said: "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened. Do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." Guys, we truly can do all things through Christ, who gives us his strength. It's because it is through God that we push down our foes. It's through his name that we tread down those who rise up against us. I can vividly remember as a 5-year-old boy having wandered one time too close to a bee's nest. Now, they were understandably very unhappy about my presence, and they began actively buzzing around my head. I stood there literally frozen in place, eyes squeezed shut, terrified that the hundreds of thousands of bees, probably it was only a dozen, but I thought hundreds of thousands of bees were going to dive bomb me. And then I heard my dad's soft voice saying, "Son, it's going to be all right. Look at me." Now, to be honest with you, I was too terrified to open my eyes, so I remember whimpering and crying out, "No, son, look at me." Slowly, I opened my eyes to see my dad standing just a few feet away. He smiled, he held out his hands, and he said, "Now slowly walk toward me." Once again, I squeezed my eyes shut, and I began trembling. I can't do that," I whimpered. "Do you trust me?" Dad asked. I slowly nodded my head, and he said, "Then look at me and walk toward me." I remember very reluctantly taking a tentative step toward my dad, never took my eyes off of him, and nothing happened. The bees didn't go ballistic. They didn't suddenly bombard me with their stingers at the ready. So I took another step, and then another, again and again and again, until I was wrapped in my dad's loving embrace, no longer threatened by the bees. As I think back on that event, I remembered of Psalm 118, verses 12 and 13, which says, They surrounded me like bees. Speaking of his enemy, they surrounded me like bees. They went out like fire from among thorns. And in the name of the Lord, I cut them off. Well, I was pushed hard so that I was falling, but the Lord helped me. Can you relate? Would you say that at times the temptation for sexual impurity is surrounding you like bees? They're poking you like fiery thorns. Have you ever felt that the sexual impurity was pushing you so hard that you were falling? God's there to help you. Through His strength, you can cut them off.